Do not attempt to adjust your speaker. The sounds that you're about to hear are various sounds that come from a human's mouth. So this is what we came with.
Is that our talking, or do you want me to start? I always have some sort of.
I was gonna talk about what about the Trump though?
No, I'm not bringing up the Trump. The Trump
though. Oh God! I just go. How does an active felon get into a powerful position in the country? It was wild shit. I was like,
did you watch that?
But he kind of explains things in there. Like, he talks calmly and is just having like a really like comfortable conversation about everything that he achieved in his 4 years versus any other president. And so Shane and I just literally sat there in bed and I was like editing. We listened to the whole thing and I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better if he wins.
But here's the thing though: is it all embellished, or is it just him talking?
Hard to say, but then real stuff? Like, did he ruin himself over Twitter? Because that's all I focused on was all that Twitter stuff. Had the guy not gone on social media, how would we feel?
Yeah. What I have a feel about it is, I just remember the first time he's in power, everybody's like, "Oh my God, if he gets in power, like the world's gonna explode." Yeah. Like, but we survived 4 years, and like it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad.
No.
So now everybody, the second time around, oh my goodness, could you imagine if he's president again? America's gonna be over. I'm like, well, last time, like, we made it. Like, you know, I still think he's kind of a bad person.
100%. And that's the thing.
And I think that's kind of
a wild card.
Yeah. The crux of the whole argument. Like, again, I don't kind of like you. I don't know anything about the inner workings of politics and policy and all that jazz. So who am I to say?
But so does 95% of the people who are voting. They don't know the inner workings of it. They just go by the face value of whoever says whatever they say.
The thing, like I said, it's not like I in-depth did my research, but honestly, the people who voted for Trump did. How many people did Kamala Harris have? Everybody pop star you can possibly have backing her up singing on stage. And
no, Taylor Swift didn't do it. So if Taylor Swift did it, that's a landslide.
Game over. They didn't hire her enough.
Game over.
But I meant, like, and the endorsements for her were like 10 times more than they were for Trump, but he still won. So people must know something that we don't. I'm not standing up for Trump or whatever. And then the other hard part about this, and it might be a hard truth, and I did listen to this on the news, so I'm taking it off of somewhere. Once again, were we just not ready for a female colored president?
No.
I just think that...
Like, I mean, I am ready. Does that make sense?
America wasn't. So they weren't ready for a female president in the first place. And second, now a female colored president, they weren't ready for that either. So.
It's just the Democrats are in a tough position where their options were Sleepy Joe or Kamala Harris, right? And their hands were tied. They're like last minute handcuffed. Horrible. Well, I guess, you know.
She was already in the role. And then one thing that I heard or whatever when I listened to my little Google Home Nest was that, it's Joe Biden's fault that she didn't win because he should have stepped down earlier. Would have gave her more time. I'm like, okay, come on.
Well, it's just a crazy, I don't know. Yeah. It was one of those better late than never situations.
No, I'm not. I don't. Again, people, first time it felt weird. And then this time it just feels like it differently because you realize people still can't critically think between the moral values of a person versus the moral values of a party, and then rather choose for the party than the person. There are people fans of Trump I'm like, I don't understand. How are you a fan of a politician? Like, they're not a pop
we don't
star.
have that in Canada.
Like, no, we don't have posters hanging on the wall, merch purchasing. We don't do that.
That's
How
incredible.
are you a fan of a politician? I understand you align with a party's goals and values. That 100% makes sense. But how are you a fan of a politician?
Though, through all that stuff, it just seems like, and maybe it's represented by the media, that like when he was in power, how many people left his like working for him? It was like the staff turned over 3 times is what they make it sound like, right? And like, but his party still has to choose him, and they did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that part I'm interested in.
over January 6th and everything too. After everything happening, they like still chose Mr. Trump.
You know what I mean? So it must
which
be,
is
like that's where we sat back when I was listening to that thing, and it was just like, well, and he just like he kind of goes through. When I was in power, I did this, and we just don't talk about that, do we? And then he's like, when this person's in power, they did 3. You know, it's just like, but that's how everything goes. That's politics. He's like, I guess I just don't play the game or whatever.
It's just like relationships. It's just like life. You know, if what is the saying? One bad apple ruins the right. So like you just think of all the positive. People are also akin to looking at the negative versus the positive in anything and everything they do. Right.
100%.
On my other stance, sort of supporting people's views, people have never seen a more guy who relates to them as much on a normal level, in the sense of the way he talks versus how Obama or Biden talked, right? You can tell it was all rehearsed and this and that. But this guy just comes off the cuff, just talks about stuff.
And then that actually makes a whole chunk of the like Americans uncomfortable, because anyone of power, any businessman or whatever, there's a certain way that you talk and you manage people, and he just doesn't do that. So then I think that makes people so uncomfortable too.
And I feel like some people feel trust with the professional vibe of it, and most people apparently agree with just the off the cuff person that he is, and how it is, right? So it's interesting.
Okay, who would have voted for?
Oh gosh. Goodness
honestly,
gracious.
I would have not even voted either of them. Like, I'm right that middle in terms of my political views. I would have neither chosen either of them.
I feel the same, because I'm like, I just obviously not our country, and I didn't do my research, so I don't just like vote to vote. But
I have, I think, just too much of affinity for like personality and morals and stuff like that. 100%. Like I probably just couldn't get over. I couldn't vote. I just couldn't vote for him because I know of some of the shit that he's done. It would hurt my insides.
Like that's purely my reasoning too. And I'm like, personality and who you are. If I'm gonna make you sit in the most powerful position in the entire world, like, I need to know you're a good person. Like, I can't look at you and say you're a good person. Like, I can't. Again, that applies to most politicians, but again, there's a scale. Can I tell Kamala is a better person than Trump is? 100%.
See, like, and I don't know
who's a better politician. I don't care. I don't know, but
and that's the thing. It's like, wolves are hidden behind her because like she presents really well. He does not present well.
Yeah.
Like, and he'll be like, but he's honest about it, I guess, in some ways. But no, like I said, I wouldn't be able to form a vote because I didn't really do any research. I'm just literally my opinions and like what I know is literally from my Google Home Nest.
Well, hey,
Google,
good
can you play the news?
We can put icing on the cake here, finish it off. Good thing for the pets in Montana. It sounds like they're safe now with Trump in power, right?
What does that even mean? Did I miss something?
Explain.
Just let her Google it after. That's incredible. Yeah.
So that's
hey, Google.
Well, with that hot off the current political, cultural situation, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to For the Record Podcast, episode 10.
Dun, dun, dun.
Jazz hands. Oh.
I've been waiting so long for this. We can't do that after 15. 3 hands on one side.
Oh, I understand. That took me a while. I just wanted to be a part of it.
I'm following along. I've been waiting for episode 10 so I could do this.
Just an extra.
Exactly.
Absolutely ruined it.
Well, we have 10 episodes, double digits. We're here. And with that double digits, we have our OG podcast host in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, Danielle Wiebe.
Oh, yeah.
In the building. Oh my God, not Pilatic anymore. Oh.
I haven't submitted the paperwork yet.
It's official, yeah.
And
Jump
so
the gun,
is
jump the gun.
Joey Sims as well. But again, Danielle, how have you been? How is life?
Good.
How is married life?
Like the whole 3 days of it.
Yes, the whole 3
It's
days.
the same.
She said, fuck going to honeymoon. I'm coming to the podcast
Yeah,
first.
exactly.
She canceled
Ronnie
it,
is
yeah.
like, so it's really important to me. If you miss it, our friendship's done. And I was
Oh
like,
my God.
Yeah, really pressure.
cancel the plane.
Yeah, cancel, yeah.
Just joking.
So Danielle's here. She's our guest host today. And we want to talk to her about how does it feel to be a bride on the other side, because she's been in the wedding industry. Now as a bride, what does that look like? And how was that process for you? But before that, how are the kids? Now,
Feisty.
she has 2 kids now. Also the reason why she gave us the boot on the podcast in the first place.
Can't do it all. Mainly because of the childcare thing and like the full-time job.
That
and then
would-
the Saturdays and the Sundays, we're busy, like,
That
you
would do
know,
it.
so.
that would do it.
No, the girls are really good.
Yeah.
Feistier than ever. You
How
know.
old is Blakely now?
Blakely is close to 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And then Meredith, she's going to be 1 at the end of the month.
Jeez.
I know.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Wild. So
But yeah, like we kind of have talked about, you know, we're in the wedding industry in all different sorts of facets. But I think Rhoni could say, since he's been married, he's been on the other side of it. It's changed a couple things and thoughts that he's had about the day. And yeah, I was witness to you being on the other end of the white dress. And
So let's start from the beginning, okay? How was where did you start when you realized, okay, now you're engaged? Where did you start?
Okay, well, this is I can't believe you guys are having me over for this episode because it's really not that dramatic.
oh, it's going to be really dramatic, really dramatic.
Okay, we got engaged, and I think Blakely was about 1, so we've been engaged for like over 2 years. But for us, like, we didn't set a wedding date right away because we were building a house, and then it was like, oh, that house should start, you know, in June, and then it didn't start in June; it started in September, and then. You know how that goes for anyone that's built anything. It's like, oh, it'll be 4 months. Well, no, it's like 7 months, you know? So that first year, like it was a crazy busy wedding season during this build. We just didn't have the capacity to plan a wedding. And we already had like a baby, house build. Like there was no like rush to start our lives. Our lives were going on with or without a wedding type deal. And then it kind of came to then the following year, it kind of came to a point where we wanted our second child. We wanted that 2 years apart. And we had kind of like a cutoff date. We were just like, okay, if we don't like aren't pregnant by this date, we'll just plan a wedding. Because you don't want to, like, if you can help it, I shouldn't say you don't want to. If you can help it, no one really wants to be pregnant on their wedding. Still goes great. Like actually, like I feel like a quarter of my brides this year were, but or like your COVID brides, like a lot of them, that was like a totally different time, right? And so anyway, we just didn't have any concrete plans. Meredith came. You're dealing with a newborn. She was only like 4 months old, right? Planning a wedding wasn't like in my brain whatsoever. And we were building the studio at this point. So it's like, let's pepper in more. But I'd entered a giveaway. So for one of my like favorite photographers, Sarah Hall down in Colorado, she had this like elopement photography, videography, floral makeup package. And I was like, I'm not the person to enter anything because I'm like, I'll never win, which isn't the greatest attitude whatsoever because no shit, you don't win when you don't enter, Danielle. So I did like crazy and like literally tagged everybody, like probably 160
I saw the
people.
tag come through.
Yeah, you're like,
Finny
oh.
saw the tag come through.
Yeah.
Everybody's got tags on there.
And it's like, she's not that type. Right?
And you won.
Yeah. And
Hey,
no,
at
actually, we
least it
didn't
was a
originally
big
win.
giveaway.
We did not win.
Right.
What?
Oh, yeah. Just wait. It gets better.
Oh,
maybe this
there
is
is drama.
spicy.
Yeah. Before you get the drama, you have, I think,
So-
an eyelash falling on your face. And apparently people watch this video wise. And it's
Yeah.
not just an audio
Oh.
thing. I know.
Then sit up straighter.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I watched you hunch and I was like, is that what I look like?
No.
Just so
That's why I just scrooge down.
I just feel like, so, okay, this is actually, either there seems to be 3 options. Either very nice and up like this, lounge back, what I just really don't like, or like forward. I feel just more engaged this way, but I know
Yeah.
it looks like my shoulders are
I'm just making fun of you. Sometimes it's like, no.
I wish I wouldn't have taken that eyelash off your face. That's okay.
Hashtag friends off. My cup that he brought me says, my hot friend I was telling you about, and it made my day. And then he told me he didn't write on it. Since that moment, when the day got crushed.
Shout out Cafe Do Good.
Okay, so back
if
to
you guys
this.
want to sponsor.
You didn't win.
Yes.
This is crazy. How does someone turn that down?
I don't know. Those people were weird. So anyway, the people, so a different couple won. Gorgeous couple. Like, I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. But anyway, they won, but then they decided like, nope, they wanted like this real wedding thing, trying to turn the whole entire experience into a real wedding. So they're like, you know what, respectfully, we're going to like redraw. Right? Because she even said, oh, you can bring people, but like, it's not
a wedding.
like you're not having a wedding.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I'm like,
Yeah,
well, no.
It's elopement. It's just the two of you.
Yeah, like
with
it's
your
just
vows,
something
whatnot,
that, and I think for them, it's the same thing. Like it's like, even when we do stuff, it's not like, you know, we've given away weddings. It's like, it's 9 hours of coverage. Imagine someone coming back to me and being like, actually, no, we like to bargain for 12.
Right.
It's not a thing.
Right.
You know? So anyway, it was Easter, like Easter weekend in and around there, I think, believe it or not. Actually, can't really remember. And I had been texting back and forth with this photographer because she had something on her story being like, unpopular opinion, but like I retouch faces for everybody that I shoot. And I was like, I love it. And I like just comment on it. And I was like, absolutely. Like, that's where I'm trying to go with it. Like I always retouch it, just trying to learn how to retouch better. And she's like, yeah, a lot of people don't. And they get like, other photographers think like, oh no, leave it natural. And I'm like, leave it beautifully natural.
Yeah. I think it's more of a artistic preference for them too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, and also retouching is an extra work. And
yeah, for sure.
Choosing to do the extra work without having that as a selling point, like, oh, we do touch up. Like that's nobody photographer says we touch up, like, but they do when they do it, right?
Absolutely. So she was saying like how much like she gives back less pictures, but she retouches, like she makes your face like look good. Like not like it was retouched, but you have no acne, like, you know, that kind of thing. Your skin looks like properly. And I was like, yeah, like I'm trying to get better at that, to give herself courses. So her and I got to chatting for a while. And then she's like, well, I'm going to do an online class. I'm like, that doesn't really work for my screaming colicky baby. But like, if you record it, I'll buy it. Like, I just wanted to see what you do because your pictures obviously look amazing. Not like I love my pictures, but like, I'm like, oh, that's next level.
Right.
So her and I were contacting back and forth, and then like it kind of went on for a month, and then she'd like send me something. Oh, like this would be helpful for you. And I'm like, we don't even know each other. Like what a kind heart.
Yep.
And then so I had her messages come through and I didn't read them that I'd won because I was like, oh, it's something to do with like retouching faces or something. Like, you know what I mean?
So she redrew, your name got picked.
Yeah,
and then she
I left it on red on my account for 2 weeks. And then her messages were like, we have to redraw. We have to redraw. And I didn't read them. And then finally she went to my photography account and messaged me there, was like, are you going to look at your messages? And I was like, oh, really hard up for business, baby. Like, I was just like, you're really selling me something I don't know. And I'm like on the toilet and I'm scanning, right? My mom's over, like helping me look after the girls. I don't know what we had on that day that we needed her, but she was there and Shane was out there doing something. And I'm like looking and I flip back because I always look, I'm really bad for responding to messages, especially just this year with postpartum. So I flipped back and I read them all. I was like, oh my God. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did she die? And then like, I don't even.
She went to the bathroom. I'm going to the bathroom. And she starts yelling, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. And like jumping. No. Like, I don't even know if I wiped, but how I went was like, we won. And she was like, what did we win? And my mom's like, what? And I was like, that thing. He's like, I thought they drew for it a long time ago. I'm like, yeah, but we won. Barely explained it, and I was like, this is the time. And I literally was like, the shittiest part about it was like September 17th, which is harvest for my parents. Yeah. So I was like, oh, we can't go because of childcare. My mom's like, we'll figure it out. Like, just go. Right. And I just looked at Shane. I'm like, what do you think? He's like, yeah, sounds fun. Like, this is something you really want. Let's do it. And then I was like, yeah, but it's like, are we just like, we're going to just do the whole thing? He's like, sure. And then it was like, I was fine with it. We were just going to go down, sign the paperwork. I'm like, what do we all need? Right. For like papers and stuff. Like, how does that work when we sign? And, I never researched it whatsoever. So I told my group of girlfriends that I always knew that they were going to be bridesmaids when we got married. Like, it was like an open discussion. I was like, yeah, hey, we're eloping, we're going or whatever. And they were like, oh, Like our parents were so on board for this elopement. Like I don't think Shane's parents cared. It was like their only son getting married. My parents already married off 2 people, and they're like, yeah, guys, like do whatever you want. But the bridesmaids did not feel that way. So I had been a bridesmaid 8 or 9 times. Like, you know that movie, what is it?
Bridesmaids?
It's 27 dresses. Well, yeah, that 27 dresses. I was that girl.
Yeah.
Right. And anyway, so these girls, I just thought like, oh, this is a blessing. Like I remember being in wedding parties back when my girlfriends were all getting married, like 7 years ago, like a whole chunk of them got married. Like you couldn't shop online. Like everything was, you go to the store
in person.
Your bridesmaid's dress was no
Azazi
cheaper.
wasn't the thing.
No, you could not find a bridesmaid's dress cheaper than $350.
Fucking hell.
Right. And then it was like, and I remember.
And different color for each wedding. Jesus.
Yeah. And I remember one summer I had like 2 of the exact same dresses, same color. And one was just off the shoulder and one was 2 straps. And I brought them to the seamstress. She was like, that's so sad. And I was like, yep. And anyway, so, and I remember being in school and it was every wedding I was ever a part of, I knew right away. It was like every time I said yes, it was like 13 to 1500 easily for a girl. By the time we did like hair, makeup, shower, social, like all those things, it was like minimum $1,500. So I remember being like, I'm just going to keep picking up extra shifts. So when you have 3 weddings as a full-time student in that one summer, you know, I remember it being like I shouldn't say a financial burden, but I remember being a little bit stressed out about it and always trying to be like, okay, I got this, and like figuring it out. Right. So when I came to planning a wedding for us, all my friends had babies. They're all on mat leaves and on their second mat leaves. And I was like, oh, I think they're really going to like that we're not doing any sort of wedding.
But that was not the case.
I think they're going to like literally be like,
wrong.
Yeah, they know. And one of them, and I mean like she's totally going to know who she is when she listens to this, but like they had like IVF babies and those babies are not cheap. And she was on mat leave. And so when I went to go tell her, I remember being like, oh my gosh, and we're just doing this. She turned to me, she's like, what? I really need this. Like, I just want a party. And I was like, oh, this is not the response I thought. Go. Like, I don't like the financial
I thought you guys would be happy. Then you don't have to buy dresses. Like, you're not going to like, no.
I just thought she'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like nothing to do with like financially them or anything. But I was just like, yeah. And like, you're on mat leave, then you don't have to worry about this, like whatever. And she's like, oh, like, and then I was talking to another girl. She's like, interesting. So like, we're all bored at home and you won't give us a wedding. And I was like, so I didn't see that coming.
Oh God.
Like there wasn't one of those girls that didn't have like something sassy or disappointing to say. Like, well, you know, I just like, I don't really get out anymore with kids. So I just really want my makeup and hair done. And you know, like an excuse to do my nails and like to buy pretty things. And I really want a dress. And I was like, oh, okay. This is not where I thought this was going. Yeah. And the guys don't care, right? Like it's been everybody, like we are older. I shouldn't say older, but we're older getting married. Like, you know, different friend groups, they're either all married with kids or they're just not.
Yeah.
Our friend groups are all married with kids.
Yeah.
Like everyone's been married for 5 years.
Yep.
So anyway, that's how this all just kind of trickled onto my lap. And I was talking to Shane about it and I was like, well, how do you feel about this? He's like, you know what? I don't know. He's like, because he was never in a bridal party. He was in one.
Oh, wow.
And he's got that core group of friends.
Right.
Well, he was over in Switzerland playing hockey.
Yeah.
Like, so he never, or he was like down in the States or whatever. He couldn't leave.
Right.
So he never made any of these wedding parties.
Shit. Yeah,
so for him, it was like a little kid with candy having a bridal party. With me, I was over it. like I was like, whatevs. And anyway, so yeah, neither one of our parents, for all I know, did not care what we did. Yeah. And then, it was the girls that were just like, well, you know what? What if we just like plan it all? What if we'll take care of it? Like, go do your Utah thing, sign your papers down there, don't sign your papers down there, do whatever you want, but we're still going to do a celebration when we get back.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it, whatever. Like, we all want to party. So I was like, okay. So whatever, we did our Utah thing. And it was amazing and never figured out how to sign papers down there. So we just didn't.
Fair enough.
I kept messaging them. I was like, do you guys know what to do? And they're like, whatever. So we did our vows and say like, first look down there and then signed our papers back here type thing. And then, we still weren't going to do a bridal party. We were just going to like have that night that these girls wanted to like plan. Yeah, like this reception type of thing. But it just was, the girls were just like, well, then we need this. And I said to Shayna, it's like, the only thing that I would have really wanted for like a traditional wedding, like if, let's just say we didn't do anything in Utah, and like I just really wanted right from the get-go before any of that happened, we were thinking about having it up in Clear Lake because the girls, that Elkhorn could accommodate 10 girls for the spa. Nowhere else really can in that capacity for the type of services you wanted. And then they had the golf. So I always wanted the spa day and then the golf for the guys. So we figured out, well, no, we can do the spa day at our house and do this golf when Shanks opened up off the highway there. And that was really, really important to me. And then, just everything just kind of trickled and came together. And all of a sudden I was planning a reception that was like a wedding. So like, to be honest with you, when you're like, let's start at the start. I was like, well,
it's two different places and where we're going to start.
It was start to finish 5.5 months.
Right.
Of like to the end date from last Saturday. So no, it was, everything about it was obviously different than a traditional wedding. Like our wedding was not traditional.
Right.
And like one thing I want to say is like with my girls, this is the funny part. Yeah. As a vendor, like what's your attitude going into a wedding? Well, I go to a wedding every weekend. Like that's how it feels, right? So no one goes to more weddings than we do. Yeah. So for me, it was like in the planning stage, I want to do things that I've never seen, so I'm not bored of them. And then the other part is like I don't want any stress. I don't want any fuss and mess. And like I know what I really knew what I wanted. I think more so than like being like, oh, what should I do? It was like, no, this is what I want. Right. And the funny thing is like my whole attitude towards this wedding, and I'm referencing a movie here. Joey, have you seen Sex and the City, the first one, where Carrie gets married?
My favorite. No.
Yeah, she is. Okay.
I think
A long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know how she originally starts out with her wedding? Like she's like, yeah, me and Mr. Big are getting married. And like no one quote me on this because I actually literally haven't watched TV in 4 years at this point. It's just like a faint memory. So she goes, me and Mr. Big are getting married. And they're like, okay, we have to do all this planning. And like everyone starts getting all excited. And she's like, we get to go wedding dress shopping. And she's like, actually, I already have my dress. And they're like, oh, because she's this, in the show or the movie, she's a fashion journalist or whatever. Something like that. So she goes into her closet, comes out with this like janky bag, and she found a white pantsuit at a thrift store. And she's like, look. And then her friends' faces, like the light from them drained. And like one guy's like, the bride wore a dress by no one. Like, as a joke. Yes. That was my wedding. Like me versus the girls. Right? Another funny story, I'll let you talk in a second. You just
take on.
Was okay, so I was like, yeah, and the girls were like, yeah, we want to dress up or whatever, and I was like, yeah, great. And I was like, why don't we all just, you guys wear whatever you want to wear, like I'll pick a color and you guys wear, and then you can reveal to me your dress. And I thought, like, this is great, you guys. Like, economic Danielle, always worried about other people and their finances. I was like, okay, and then borrow, like, I don't know. On a mat leave when you don't have that income, I didn't want anyone to spend money. And the girls, like, I just thought they would be so happy with that. Like, Danielle's just being so nice about it all. They hated that. They absolutely almost lit me on fire.
How dare you not let us dress up?
Well,
for your wedding.
So I was like, wear whatever style you want. I just put sage. Sage is the color. And then the girls are like, well, what are your parameters? I'm like, well, how about, like, if there's 8 of you, 7 of you, please don't wear the same dress. And then that one, like coordinate a little bit. Yeah. Well, I think that sent them over the edge because then it was like a group chat that never ended for them. Like, what about this? What about this? Like everybody, and then finally, one of my girlfriends comes driving out in her van, sits down with me and was like, you just need to pick a dress. If you don't pick a dress, like this will never end. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. Please pick a dress. This is too stressful.
This is interesting too, because not that I know anything about dresses, but
are you sure?
What I'm probably more than Rhoni, but I would say that the general theme or what I see is it's just variations on like a very similar dress.
Yeah.
Like if you see like a group of 4 girls, bridesmaids, like it's the exact same color, but one's
All
got,
different,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. One's strapless, one's got a little bit of
Yeah.
sleeves, one's got this and that. It was the exact same dress, right? For
Yeah.
all of your
Oh, yeah.
girls. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's
Interesting.
so
Not what I
like,
would have thought.
Exactly. So I like hearing the backstory here.
Yeah, and I was just like, just look at whatever you want, like borrow one, like do whatever. I don't even care. Like I really don't care. Like no part of me cares about this. They cared.
They cared.
They really cared. Yeah, and they're all just like, well, like, Danielle, look at the colors are all selling out. This is too stressful. Look at that one sold out now too. And it was just like, ooh, I was quite wrong on some things.
So this is actually interesting because I would say most wedding vendors nowadays will generally say the same thing. When we had, what was the night we had at the firehouse last year? The
Show experience.
the experience there where we just chatted amongst people. And the big thing that we have advocated for couples getting married is that it is your day. Do whatever you want. Be unique. Have fun. Be different. You don't have to do the same thing. But this, and from other things I've heard from other people do still like the very traditional process. They want, like the girls want to go look at
Do all the
dresses
things,
together.
yeah.
They want to have the nights. They want to have the
They want
bachelorette
the
parties.
experience.
They want the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's hilarious. Like, could you imagine say, hey, I got, 4 or 5 brides that, you know what? I don't really have a really strict color scheme. I want you guys to pick your bride and we'll have like a fun unveiling, like a little fashion show thing.
That's what
walk
my
out.
plan was. I was like, then I could just like sit there and giggle and laugh.
Exactly. That would be
Yeah.
so good. And
They're like,
no.
No.
Now,
Okay,
how dare you take this away from us?
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah. So it was just funny. I was like, and I loved everything we did. Don't get me wrong, but I just like laugh at that group of girls because the best part about them is they're all from different friend groups. Probably my favorite part about my wedding is that I took a bunch of girls from different friend groups, and there's obviously a reason why you're attracted to people, and put them together. And I think they're all best friends now.
Yeah.
Like
They were moving like, the ocean. They were a unit.
living in my dress at one point, like in the dress with me. Video coverage of that.
Yes. So there's some big
But they,
on tables and chairs. it was
So
nuts.
I think that was really important to me to like have a good crew that we just party with, because that's what we were doing. We were partying that day. Like it was like a reception celebration type thing, getting married there. And like that, I got that. And that group of girls, I'm like, I'm not down talking them whatsoever because they're hilarious. But it's just like they were a tornado of fun and you could not stop them. Like, right? I would never trade that group in for anything, because imagine having a bad bridal party. Well, that doesn't matter if you got everything you want or it went the way that you want. That really sucks.
If anything, you could tell like they cared about it. A lot more than you did of your own wedding.
And the people can make up for bad things happening on a day.
Oh God,
right?
yeah.
Right? Like, you've been to enough weddings, you've had these horror story episodes, you've seen stuff, you're like, this happens. But ultimately, if at the end of the day you can say that I had everybody there that I wanted there and we were happy and having a good time.
Yep. I didn't have to. I'm a big people pleaser and I want to make sure everyone's having fun. Like that's probably the worst thing about me is that like on my wedding day, I was going around being like, are you having fun? Are you having fun? And everyone's like, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, no, I just want to know how your experience has been so far. And they're like, can you go have a drink?
Did you actually fill out this Yelp review? I'd like to know.
And the girls were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, okay, I'll calm down. But I remember getting this text message and I was like, oh, do you have something blue? And I was like, I really don't care about that. Like, something borrowed, something new.
blue, something.
I was like, it's not really like, not my thing. And nothing like this isn't traditional, like that kind of thing. Sure enough, girls were like jumping up and down and they had me a Tiffany box with the something blue on it. And it was so cute. But I was like, see, they could not drop the tradition. They
Crazy.
and I love it because it's from them, and obviously Tiffany's is always a fun time. But yeah, like the little blue gem in there, they could not drop. Like, you need this. You absolutely have to have something new, something used, something borrowed. Like, and I was just like, okay, but I loved it, right? But like going back to dropping that tradition and being like quirky and weird, and like just like from a vendor's standpoint. When you guys shoot a wedding and you're like, oh, this was different, don't you like part of you you're like
excited about it? Yeah.
My goodness. So I'm doing a lot of the sales stuff and we get inquiries all the time. And I am not a video guy and I'm not a photographer, but I've seen enough weddings or I've seen enough trends and traditions. But when I see something that is different, then I know what phenomenal products we put out, I get so excited, and I have a hard time sometimes with the calls where I'm like, hey, like, I don't want to sound like we really want to do your wedding, like, please, but like that. But I'm like, you got something like it's this old school traditional, or like something in a different culture, or their idea is something very, very different. And I'm like, I want to capture that. I personally don't have the means to capture that. We got a video crew that can do that, but that is a different experience.
Yeah, when the client tells you that they have something cool going on, and you automatically be like, okay, now you got to think about how we can make that just like exist for a long time, and how can we put that together, right? So,
like for me, and you, I think, have been there for some of them. I just mumbled. I've had now 2 brides are like, we're going to do a gender reveal in the middle of our wedding. And they're like, well, what do you think? Should we? And I'm like, absolutely. 100%. What do you need? And then I ended up being like, here's your Amazon link. This one works. That, like, I'm just like so in depth to the planning.
We did a gender reveal for a couple, Sarah and Corey here.
At a golf course.
For Wheat City.
Yeah, September.
So cool. Like golf ball, like he's on the first hole at the tee box. And everybody, we brought all the guests over because some of them didn't know she was pregnant. Yep. Some of them knew, but nobody knew it was going to be a gender reveal until we bought them out. And then they realized, oh, it's happening. And then everybody's excitement. And it's so,
all the pictures
so
from
fun.
it and stuff.
Oh, so
and
much
even
fun.
as a couple, they're like, is this weird? Is this like inconvenient to make everybody like get up and out of the building and like walk across? Like, yeah, I even felt like as a vendor, I'm like, people can walk. They're like, if they're not here for you, they're at the wrong wedding. Exactly. Like, I'm so like pro, let's do fun things. Let's make this a good experience for the bride and groom. But then planning that, I was just like, well, people like this. Like I was back to the other side of the table. That did not change. I was so worried about like the guest experience, even though I knew better.
So you see, and that's the thing too. Being a vendor, you see differently, and then once you're put in the shoe of a bride and have to plan a wedding, then you automatically like get pulled into being opposite of what you think you should be, which is I have to plan my wedding for what I want. But then you're like, oh, well, people are gonna love it, right?
Oh yeah.
It's so different in terms of looking at it, and you go, crap, I can't just look at myself.
You know what's really funny about it though? Like, so like. For our thing that we did, I had Jackie Lepp from Lux Decorate, right? And I had you guys, and I had my friend Duncan play violin. And like the whole entire process of it, even with like dealing with Jackie, she's amazing. So she's going to do all my studio stuff because I love her. She was fancier than I intended, but she's like, well, I wouldn't like, this has to be perfect for you.
She's not,
Danielle,
she's
for
not
you.
she's not gonna have
No,
fancy.
even when I walked in, I was like, wow, this is 5-star. Like I was going for 2-star. Like, I don't know why I was trying so hard to like,
downplay it.
Downplay it. And it looked really good. And like the florals and the candles and then the violin, that all went together.
Yeah.
Like that all made sense together.
Sure did.
But, it was funny because like I'm just sitting back there and I was like, man, I would have just put a bowl of munchies on those tables. Like, I don't know why.
No.
And then even my good friend Duncan, I call him my work husband, but he was a music teacher at the elementary school that I taught at. He was like, I'm doing this for your wedding. And I was like, okay. And I was like, violin and party don't really match. But you know what? He was like, what do you want for songs? And he was so passionate about it. And it was just like, my vision was a straight up the funniest like thing, the funniest party you could possibly do. Anything that was not normal, that's what I wanted for that day.
You tried very hard to not have a traditional wedding.
Yeah, but it just sewed together more traditional than I had thought. Yeah. But you know what though? Like if I reflect on it, I was like, no, there aren't these normally anymore because it's so costly and stuff. But like there aren't usually those big balls of flowers. Like that's not really, people aren't investing in that. But she wanted to do that and it looked good. And she was like so happy and our guests are so happy and our parents are so happy. Like I think that part even made her parents happier, like the decor part of it. And then for Duncan, he was so like vibrating to be able to do this. And that was more important to me than like, I didn't even know what songs he was playing until like the day before. I was like, whatever you think. Like, right. And then you guys dealing with me, you're like, what do you want? Like nothing. And you're just like, I got a whole day.
The amount of time I was like, Danielle, what do you want? It's like, what do you want? It's a scene from the, what do you want?
From the notebook.
She's like, it's not that easy.
Yeah. That's really what's me.
So good.
So going back to like I don't feel like I'm answering anything well, but going back from the vendor standpoint, okay, so even for the video part, I was like, I just want to do reels. And you were just like, what?
Basically, so the guys came back. So here's when I realized she actually pulled it off. So I go to the wedding and I see Carson and Sylvester, and Carson, before I even ask him, he goes, all they wanted was to make cool reels. Like she said, nothing traditional. We're not going to do couple shots. We're not going to do nothing. So we're just having fun with the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. That's all we're doing. That's all we did. I'm like, so wait, nothing? Like no couple shot? Like, no, we don't have anything. I was like, what is happening? And then in the back of my mind, I was like, typical Danielle. Yeah. Typical Danielle. So
and even then, okay, but even then I was like, no, we're not getting on the like mom putting in the dress. Like, we're not doing that. Yeah. We're not doing detailed shots. And you were just like, no, but we are. And then like, no. My spot timeline does not allow for that.
Hey, well, here's the thing, and this is great, as I think you guys can agree. When you have, there's some redundancy to probably specifically video and photo when you're doing weddings, right? You have this process. You know how the day goes. You know what you're looking to shoot. When you have someone throw a curveball, it's good and bad. It's good and bad. It's good because now you have to kind of go back a little bit and have a bit of a fresh perspective, right? Typically, like there's a framework for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, you fit into this. This is what we do for weddings.
And this is this. And this is how we go through. We tell this story this way. Now, like I'm excited to hear those guys go over like some of that footage and how it looks, because it's not going to be normal, and how they're going to tell your story with different shots and different things, right?
And here's another thing: as a vendor working at another wedding vendor's wedding, is a little stressful because the stakes are a little high. Because here's
I see it, and I didn't have any stakes.
And that's the thing. It's like because the stakes are high, because you have to match a certain level of standard because they know what's good and what's not, and you have to go, okay, I have to make sure this is meeting the standard of who they are. Now with Danielle, you can't even get there because she's wanting to do nothing with it, and she's like, just make sure it's a good party. That's it. I'm like, that's not giving me anything to work off of, right? So you go, okay, now I have to figure out how to get to the standard with her giving me nothing, but it still have to be a good party. So it's like other vendors, again, when you mentioned Jackie trying to, when you walk in, because Jackie's trying to make sure like your wedding is good. Oh, yeah. Right? Because
she exceeded my expectations. Duncan exceeded my expectations.
And that's the thing. It's just once you're a vendor and you're having a wedding, the expectations are a little higher. And then you have to match that. You got to get there, make sure everybody's satisfied. Because at the end of the day, you're still a client, but at the same time, the stakes are a little higher, right? So,
and I feel like my whole entire like wedding, in a sense, like I think I stressed everyone out. From the bridesmaids dresses to possibly not doing anything to telling you, oh, I only want the video guys there for like an hour and a half. You're like, no. And I'm like, yeah.
I had to fight to go. So usually our video guys start at 10:30, 11 in the day, and then they're done around 9:30,
8-hour day.
And then she goes, yeah, I don't think they need to be there till 4. I'm like, no. What do you mean 4? She goes, yeah, my spa date is my spa date. So she makes this whole time. The spa date doesn't end until 2. I'm like, so I'll send the guys at 1. It's like, no, they won't be there till 2. It's like, so then I'm sending them at the 2. I had to fight tooth and nail to get guys to show up to get content because we're not going to have content. So fine. All to say, in a sense of, you walked away from it as traditional as possible to be like, I just don't want this to be traditional. I just want it to be a fun night where I bring my friends and family together and we have a great time. And that's what the goal was. And there are some places, thanks to the bridesmaids, that pulled you to be like, hey, like, we're going to do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then there's some parts like us who are like, okay, we need a timeline. We need to figure out, get ready. What does that look like and whatever. So, but
there's nothing I would change or do differently, but the one thing, like if you're like, okay, what are your things you pull away? You're like, oh, this is like, now that you've been in the other pair of shoes, what did you learn? Like, what did I learn from
That's what the people want to know.
Yeah.
was what you guys did, what the bridesmaids did, what Jackie did, what everybody did to make, like, if I said one thing, they wanted more for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're like, I'm like, oh no, like a 6 out of 10, you guys went 12 out of 10 on like every aspect. Like all the people I love went above and beyond to make that day like more magical than I had anticipated it to be, or like, you know,
Right.
was that I do that
Right.
for people. Right. So when I talked to Brian, she's like, we want 8 hours of coverage. We're doing a small backyard wedding. I can't let go of not having getting ready photos.
Right.
Well, we don't care about getting ready photos. I'm like, but we must.
Yeah.
And I'm like insistent and pushy. And like sometimes they're ultimately happy. I'm like 5 minutes. 5 minutes of me just getting, I call them portraits. Like I just changed my wording to get them to bend to my will. And now you're like, yeah, okay, I understand. I do that to people.
Right.
Like I will not, because it's like a type of OCD as a vendor. I need to, here's my boxes. I have to check them off for my client and I can't drop things. And there's sometimes where it's like, oh, your timeline doesn't really allow for me to catch first dances. Like just trying to, I'm always having talks and trying to fit as much as I can with the package to pick. And they're like, okay, we don't care. Sure enough, who's staying for first dances? Because I cannot drop it. Me, like 2 extra free hours to hit that first dance. Like I get it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So now I think what I'm going to take away from being on the other side of the table going forward is like when I do a bride call or a couple call is I really want to know. I think my question, instead of being like, oh, what coverage and what pictures and like that, I'm going to pull back and I'm going to say, what do you imagine the day looking like? Like what are important to you in terms of like, I have had a bride say the band is most important to me, pictures or not. And I was like, why'd you hire me?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. And then she's like, well, no, and she said to me point blank, I was in a wedding party that you shot and you were really fun. She's like, I don't really care about photos. Like, I don't want to do sunset. Still made her. So there you go. You know what I mean? And she's like, no, I know that if I have you, you'll figure it out. And the bridal party will really like you.
Right.
And she's like, because you're funny, you're witty.
Right.
Like, you're not going to drag down my day. But she says, in terms of photos, I have no expectation. I just want to make sure that I am spending all night in front of my live band.
Right.
And I was like so offended when she said that. And I was like, hire someone cheaper.
And that's the priorities, right?
But I forget, and we do forget. And I mean, this plays more into Joey than I think would play into you. But people would hire Joey for his personality.
100%.
I've never considered myself being hired for my personality.
Yeah. But that is all.
And that's something that, how is that quantifiable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
Right? Like, you know, I'm going to, this percentage of the price is for my work and this is because I'm hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's the thing though. Comedians, for example, they start off, you know, small bars, this and this, and like, you know, little comedy bar, little corner, little dive bar. But then once they get funnier, and it could be the same person, it's just what they say and how they say it gets better. Now all of a sudden they're touring the country, and then all of a sudden they're touring the world, and their prices is drastically different. It's the same person, same jokes coming out of the same person.
It's just like,
it's just because it's who they are and how they say it differs, and automatically their value of a person just goes up because a large population starts loving them, right? A large amount of people start. So that's why, again, a personal brand, going back to like just a personality, a personal brand is important for a photographer and for a DJ because you as a person is just as important than what you know or what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Because they understand, okay, if I know this person and I know their work, that's it. That's all I need to know. Off to the next thing, right? So
it's funny when you say that. It was like, we did Joe Beavers for catering and I didn't look at anybody else kind of thing. I was like, well, if Brett works it, then if any problems arise, she'll figure it out. Yeah. So I was like, I just want to hire Brett because I won't have to worry about this. And it wasn't like when the menu, she's like, do you want to pick the menu? I'm like, I don't know. No. Like, I was like, I don't care. Whatever. Like, and she's like, oh my God, Kay, well,
this
you
girl
seem
said
to
whatever for her wedding planning than anything else.
And she's like, well, you were at so-and-so's wedding and you said you liked the menu. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. Like, sure, fine. It's great. Like,
just sharing everything.
Honestly,
on a scale of 1 to 10, she put 5 every single time. Neutral.
Literally.
Every single time. Yeah, this is no help. Yeah.
But
I feel, Kate, okay, there's something I do want to bring up here. there's like, okay, how was your wedding different? Or like, what did you, whatever, experience-wise being a vendor to planning a wedding. Okay, what about being a parent to planning a wedding?
Jeez.
Because so I think when you look at how I did things and how I keep saying, oh, I didn't care, and I didn't care. No, like there were things I was hurt about, like that spa day for those girls. Like that was my like one thing. I was like, spending like, so much money on that. Like that's my thing.
Yeah.
But once you're, and I don't want to make assumptions for anybody, but like the parent part and the vendor part had me not really put so much pressure on a wedding.
Yeah.
Or how it went.
Interesting.
Because in my mind, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, and I have this conversation all the time with my clients, is we put so much importance on wedding photos and them looking like a certain way and everything's about the photos. But how often do you look at your wedding photos once you've popped out a kid? All you do is look at the pictures of your kids.
Yeah.
Like your walls are 90% covered of your children and like one wedding photo.
Not that I'm comparing kids to my dog, but yes, I do look at pictures of my dog more than I look at pictures of my wedding. So
yeah. Do you see what I'm saying though?
100%.
So for me, and I tell my clients, I make that joke all the time about like that, right?
Rhoni, I'm just like, she's talking about her baby, colicky babies crying, screaming all the time. Rhoni's like, oh yeah, low key, really,
Yeah, I
had
get
to clean
you,
up,
man.
had to clean up poop the other day. It was tough. I totally hear you.
And he barked once last night. So
I
was
mean,
a rough night.
all night,
Yeah.
all night.
Oh, am I barking at random shit? Oh.
And he didn't eat the treat I gave him this morning, so
gosh,
he's a little off today.
I was
can't
gonna-
stop thinking
Last
about
week
was
he
gonna leave him
loved
at-
this treat. Now he just doesn't like it anymore.
I was going to
can't
leave him
believe-
at dog daycare, but daycare was full and I couldn't find daycare for him. Oh,
gosh.
What a time.
What a stress.
I'm so
But
sorry.
no, so then after the kid part,
Yeah.
you just realize like there's a whole bunch of things you actually don't even want to spend money on because it's like, well, I could drop a couple $1,000s here for something, or I can get my kid like the nice bougie warm snowsuit, even though they don't even need it. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Especially for weddings but life, right? Like time and money are big things. No, newsflash. But when you look at your day, when you look at your kid, like it's as simple as that: time, money. How do you want to spend that time? How do you spend that money? And ultimately, when you become a parent, a lot of that time and money slowly leaks over to the kids. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I noticed that with weddings. If it's just like a young couple, fresh in a relationship, there ain't no kids even near their immediate future, versus a family that's been established. They got 3 kids. The wedding day is very different
Because the priorities are different.
Priorities are different, and that's okay.
And I don't feel like you have I don't want to call them bridezillas. I can't even say I've dealt with a bridezilla, to be honest with you. I almost hate the term because I'm like, I don't know, my clients don't do it.
Right.
But like, I was just very stress free in the sense because I'm like, I kind of already have like this wedding. I feel like, you know what it comes down to? It's like this wedding determines how good your life's going to be.
Right.
Versus my life's already good. We're just celebrating.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right? And this is a fun perspective that I've heard too. Once you have kids, right? You're like, there could be something like real bad going on and like stressful, like whether work's going bad or the wedding date, whatever. Right. But you're like, at the end of the day, like Danielle's like, my girls are tucked in bed and okay and healthy and good. So like I'm fine.
But then rewind, everyone's like, are you bringing them to
the wedding?
I was like, heart no. I got a babysitter all day.
As much as she talked about the kid and how much she loves them, she said, no, do not bring your kids to your wedding. Not even if it's your own kids to your own wedding.
Rhoni, you opened your computer. Is there a reason for that?
Well, one thing before we get there. Funny because we get Danielle's perspective here today, but I'm going to bring up Lori next podcast, and we're going to get Lori's perspective.
I think hers was very similar to mine.
Well, yes, but hers was an entire wedding day. She had bridesmaids, groomsmen, everything.
We get Lori come hang out?
Yes. Yeah. So, funny enough, they're both their wedding happened on the same day.
Yeah, that was funny.
And it was completely different looks for what they wanted and how they wanted it. And getting to see that is gonna, and from her perspective, again, she's got a baby too. So both of you are parents, and both of you are in the wedding industry, and both of you got married on the same day. and you had two completely different style of weddings.
Yeah.
So which is wild, and I want to get her perspective. So which is gonna be cool.
You know what though, little birdie Stacy, her photographer, said, you know what, it's funny, like she was asking me like what we did.
Yeah.
And I said, we actually did family photos and like the most standard 20 minutes of bridal party photos. That was it. That's all we did.
Yeah.
And she's like, hilarious, because Lori said, I only want these photos, no more.
Yeah.
Like, and I was just like, I guess I wouldn't have pegged Lori to want that.
yeah.
I'm like, but I bet you people didn't peg me.
100%.
And both her and I were like, no fuss, no muss, standard. Get like
and
one
Lori
and done.
said everything's happening in one place. We're not going places. Everything's happening behind the dome. We're gonna take photos there. So that's gonna be interesting when we bring Lori on.
I think it's like there's so many aspects like that are very similar.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so too. I think it'll be very similar. But her way of looking at things as a wedding planner is different.
Yeah.
Because us as photographers and videographers, there's a difference there too. But so a couple weeks ago, we did an episode called Overrated, Underrated.
We
had our, from a DJ perspective, from a videographer, we had our overrated, underrated moments of what is it overrated or underrated. So we won't give our input, but I want your input.
Okay.
On the exact same ones
on
that
the
we
exact
did?
same ones.
Okay.
All right. Because I know what she's gonna be okay with, and it's gonna be so interesting.
Okay. And for both purposes of the length of this podcast, and also for me and Rhoni's mental health standpoint, let's not rehash some of those arguments that we are going to.
Or we could just continue this as a separate podcast.
Well,
How about that?
Let's just let
I'm
her
too
go.
intrigued. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay,
Let's
got
start.
it.
Let's just go, and we'll
Got it.
hold on here.
It's gonna be great. How are we at recording?
Yeah.
No, like how many minutes have we gone? 55. Yeah, I think we got to go to a different podcast because it's too long.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
So
No,
we're
hold
gonna
on.
go part 2.
Hold on. This is great. All right.
Bring a change of clothes.
To be continued. I want this. Can we edit this with just like epic music? Like wait on next week's episode, right? Like,
So we're not ending it with our traditional stuff.
would you want to hear? Okay, well let's do it.
so-
Okay, all
We're
right.
doing it.
Well,
So are you sure you have another one for the next?
oh man, I got so many
Okay,
unique
good.
ways
All
to
right.
say coffee loaded up.
So now that we're about a 55-minute mark on the podcast, we're going to cut this here and come back to the next episode for Overrated, Underrated with Danielle. So ladies and gentlemen, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Trident Event Group, For the Record Podcast.
Forget
Joey.
all that. Unique way of saying coffee. We're going with a epic classic that I've been told I have to say. All right, double double.
Yes.
Isn't
I'll
it
take
wild? Isn't
I'll
it
take
wild that you can go somewhere and order not a coffee, you can order a double? That's
know what?
nuts.
We
have
took
no
us 10 episodes for me to agree on his coffee term, and I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
I drink a double.
It's a unique way of saying coffee. Okay, so double that you can
Yeah.
say Java,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Hot brown.
No, I've never heard. That feels racist.
That feels racist. She went the other way. Doesn't that sound like
man.
shit? Hot brown.
Yeah, hot brown. I feel like want to go shit in a cup.
Hot brown sounds more
The
like a
return of hot
compliment
brown.
than
The return of hot brown.
compliment and an underhanded racism comment than an actual racism comment.
Oh, okay.
right.
See you next
I
time.
want to follow you and just see the shit that comes out of your mouth and
Oh,
how people
God.
react. Can
Finish
I get a
it.
hot
Close it.
brown?
Close
She's
it.
not working
Close
today.
it.
Danielle,
Close
see you
it.
at all the goods for the next episode. Good ciao.